Okay, welcome back to Business Owners Speak. Today, I'm thrilled to have with us Kareem Rae with One Soccer Nation. Kareem, how are you today?
Doing well, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. Excited to learn more about the business. So, as we do with everyone, start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Absolutely. Well, grew up playing soccer at the age of 4 here in Canada. Started from all the way from grassroots, played for the last 20 years, worked my way up to semi-pro, played in England, France. The last team I played for was in America, in the United States with Naples, down there actually in Florida, Naples United FC in the NPSL Division 4 in the US Soccer Pyramid. Wrote my first book at 18, started podcasting 2020. So I've done about 250 interviews with professional soccer players in Major League Soccer, the United Soccer League Championship, USL One, MLS Next Pro, and players all around the world. And then it got a little bit bigger with, I noticed more people in the beautiful game on and off the field wanted to share their stories. So anyone from coaches, scouts, agents, strength and conditioning coaches, and club owners, sophisticated individuals, high net worth investors that have, invested their capital, hard-earned capital that they've earned to invest into soccer, the game that we love, the beautiful game. So soccer guy all the way around, and I keep it soccer, everything. That's my DNA, and I'm obsessed. I love the game.
So, are you from Canada originally?
Yeah, born and raised, and actually just yesterday I just got my American visa.
Oh, wow. Good for you. So, are you coming back?
I have to. I do a little bit of traveling back and forth between Canada and US.
Okay, interesting. All right, Kareem. So, soccer kid, growing up playing soccer, semi-pro. So, did you jump right into this right after your playing career, or was there some other jobs in between?
Matt, that's a great question. It's actually funny. I left something out, so I don't know if you could see that green book in the back there.
Yep.
I wrote it at 18 and I published it at 19 on Amazon. So KDP, it's direct Kindle Direct Publishing. It's a book about helping soccer players. It's called I Want to Become a Professional Soccer Player on Amazon. You type in my name, Kareem Rae, it'll pop up. So my mentor, Jay Waterman, I was at his office one day. I worked at his office back in 2018, all the way up to 2020 plus. When before COVID happened, he had an office down here in Toronto, and I was at his office early beginnings of my co-op, and he said, "Kareem, do you know how to go pro?" Right? Because that was my goal, right? I was going to work at his office, and then after work, I'd go to soccer practice every day. And it was actually an hour drive from home to the office, and then from the office, I'd work there for 8 hours, and then after work, I'd drive another hour to soccer practice, and then an hour back to home every single day during the week, 5 days a week, and train. And one day at his office, he had asked me, "Do you know how to go pro?" Right? Because that was my focus, and I said no. Right? I'm working towards a goal I don't know how to get towards. Right? And he said, "You should write a book." So it's simply, that seed being planted of you should write a book. I was like baffled. I was like, I could write a book. Like I didn't even go pro yet, right? And he planted this thought, this idea in my mind, and sent me over some material in regards to how to do so. And I watched the video, followed the steps, and created a book at the age of 18, published it at 19, and that was the start of my mind figuring out how to structure things, create things, and then sell it. And then from there, the same kind of experience happened. I was in Florida, Naples, working towards going to pro, trying to go pro, and I'd shared some of the obstacles I was coming across, and he said, "Why don't you start your own team?" And I said, that's probably a lot of money and time, and I don't know the business side. So, that's kind of a long story short of how I transitioned from the soccer side, from a player's perspective, to the business side. And when he had shared that thought, I was like, okay, this is part two of part one of the book. So I gotta, just like how I figured out how to write the book, I gotta figure out how to start a club. So back in 2020, I started podcasting and again interviewing everyone on and off field, and then hearing all these different stories and learning all these different perspectives about the game, especially club owners that own teams. That's what really helped me dive in to learning the business side and helping me transition, having a bit of a smoother transition into the business side because of having all these different perspectives from all these professionals within the beautiful game. So yeah, big shout out to Jay Waterman and everyone that's been along my journey. That's helped share value on our podcast with me and with the world.
Sure. So, tell us where the idea of One Soccer Nation came from.
That's another good question. Again, it comes back from my DNA and wanting to give unknown superstars the chance to go pro. I've noticed the obstacles I've come across. That's the reason for the book, to help players, millions of players around the book. Um, and there's problems I was coming across that I didn't know that I was going to face along this journey. One of them being, traveling outside of the country and, not knowing that I needed a visa, right, to stay in these countries for a long period of time legally, to get paid legally. So that's one obstacle if players are not trying to go, if players are trying to go pro overseas. Um, the reason why I didn't try to go pro in Canada is because when I was growing up, we didn't have a professional soccer league to look up to go pro and get paid for what we love to do. So I had to look outside of our backyard. Um, so that's one of the biggest problems. Some other problems players may come across is financial. Players may not have the financial backings to do so, to travel or pursue their career. In the US, it's a pay to play model, unless you're in a MLS academy. And the last point I'll mention is maybe political could be some barriers there. But with One Soccer Nation, we want to remove those barriers. And as I mentioned, giving unknown superstars a chance to go pro. How we plan on doing that is by launching our own professional soccer team in the United States. And we're working towards launching both men's and women's. So we want to do both men's and women's. And the super cool, exciting thing about it for investors is the real estate side of it. So, investing into a mixed use development project, building whether it's depending on which league you're entering into, requirement by league, you may have to build a 5,000 seated stadium or a 15,000 plus seated stadium. And then other assets could be built around it, whether that's condos, apartments, residential, retail, restaurants, hotel, parking lots. Those are other assets that could be built around the stadium. And soccer is really used as the anchor to bring the community together. So it's a community asset. Thing that cities are looking forward to make sure they're creating a space where families and people could live, work, and play, have fun, right? And soccer creates amazing memories. And then the other side to it, which is pretty cool, is again, that passion project and helping players achieve their dreams, both on the men's side and women's side, of them getting paid for what they love to do. So that's what's been so exciting about this project.
All right. So just so we're perfectly clear, is your main focus right now as a business to start your own team somewhere in the United States?
Yes. So we've done
Okay.
market research in about 5 states. We did market research in California, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. But the market that we're pretty keen about is on the east side. We're not able to disclose yet, but we have put together financials, a beautiful presentation to share with investors. Again, that want to invest in the beautiful game, and I think it's such an exciting time of where soccer is. The U.S. women's national team just won the Olympics 2024, if I can remember the year, right? And then in 2026, the World Cup is coming up. And I'm not too sure if you're a soccer fan,
Yeah.
but we're seeing the Messi effect down there in Miami, and what that's doing with that super team with Suarez, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets. And what that's doing, that's kind of a trailer of what the World Cup is going to be, which is much, much bigger.
Sure. So how are you determining, and again, this is interesting because very few people out there have probably started a soccer team, right? So how do you try to infiltrate based on the level? Because that's one of the confusing things, especially to Americans, about how soccer works across the globe, is all the different levels. Like, how do you decide if I like somewhere on the East Coast, what kind of level of ability your team would be?
Matt, that's a great question. So in America, you could buy your way into the professional ranks. So for MLS, it's a $500 million franchise fee.
Oh,
San Diego just paid that, right? That's a bit too high. But the United Soccer League, you got the USL Championship. The franchise fees is you're looking at a few millions, both on the men's and women's side. And a cool fact about United Soccer League is that they have a professional men's league and a professional women's league, both within under the same umbrella, which is the first of its kind around the world. So an investor can buy their way into the soccer pyramid. Um, so really, some of the key pieces to the investment is, an individual that has to meet the league's criteria, that's willing to own 35% of the team, that is a $30 million net worth individual, whether that's a entity or individual. And then, the franchise fee has to be covered. Some of the key pieces is land, zoning, the city wanting to get behind the project. Um, is there an existing stadium that we could play in right away, or do we have to build a brand new stadium? How long is that development going to take? Now we're not, the builders. That's where strategic partnership comes in with experience. What's the weather like? That's a key factor. Does the community want soccer, or do they want basketball? So that's another key component to be aware of. Are there investors in that market, or are they outside? So those are some of the key pieces that you'd want to look for in regards to that investment. And I think the point that I missed in regards to our creation of our vision is that we're working towards building a soccer village, and that grid being lit up by green energy that's sustainable. So, something that the public and city would be very appreciative of.
Yeah. So talk to us, Kareem, about like your role right now. Like, what are you actively doing because I'm sure, not just finding a good place and location, but finding investors is very important to all of this working, right? So like on a daily basis, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an advisory board of about 9 advisors, all experts within the soccer space, and half are from the U.S., half are from Canada. So we have advisory calls at the end of the month. So managing that was something about, it's been a year now, but that was kind of a cool experience for managing and being in the role of a CEO. You know, uh, I didn't know I was going to come across that this soon, to be honest with you. But it's been such a cool experience of management of such high profile people and well respected. So also protecting that is very important for us. So my role as the the CEO at One Soccer Nation is I wear a lot of hats, and we're a startup. So we've been on this. The company's been registered since September 6, 2022. So for 2 years, but we've been building the brand for about 6 years. Um, we have, as mentioned with the podcast, we have 3 podcast co-hosts. Jalen Campbell, a graduate from Temple University, played soccer as well, and 2 females, Michaela Days and Malike Days, both graduates from universities in the United States. The university name left my head right now, but they're both graduates. They're both playing professionally in Europe, actually. So that's pretty cool. And I actually grew up with both of them in middle school and high school. So there's different buckets of management, I would say. And then in regards to raising capital, building relationships with investors, trust, transparency is very important. And then obviously the last 2 years of speaking to investors, speaking to different leagues within the United States, and just learning all the different pieces to the investment, and making sure that we have all the strategic partnerships, all the materials in regards to present to an investor to showcase that we're ready for investment and to deploy that capital into soccer.
Right.
So wearing many hats and looking forward to hiring soon and delegating more.
Good. So when you lay the head down at night and think about the future of this business, like what do you see? Like what is the ultimate goal?
I love that question. Well, what I see is, and I think I'll share a pretty cool experience for me personally, is that I've interviewed about more than I think 8 owners that own teams right now. So when I do interviews with them, and I hear their roles and what they're doing and what they're managing, et cetera, and what they've built, um, it gets me thinking at night. And I actually had a dream of like already being in that role, I guess because I've done so many interviews and being in that role of what that looks like, right? And going to a game and watching it and being like all this hard work paid off and having all the stakeholders there and celebrating with the team. So what this really looks like is again really bringing everyone together to make this happen is one thing, and then act two, to celebrate it with everyone that's a part of it, and then the third thing would be to make sure it's legacy and long term, and to manage it and keep it upbeat.
Sure. Well, you got to see the dream if it's going to become a reality, right? So that's good. I can see you standing at the game just thinking, wow, I actually pulled this off. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm curious, and all small business owners, especially at startup, it takes a special set of skills for you, just you individually. Like, what are, two or three of the most important either characteristics or skills that you're deploying every day to keep this thing moving forward?
for sure. I think one of the biggest things has been networking, meeting the right people, making building the right relationships. And they always say the investment, yeah, the business model has to make sense, but they're really investing into the founder as well, right? So there's actually a pretty funny saying that I like. They're not betting on the horse, they're betting on the jockey. So that's from the VC space. So, and making sure that I know everything that I need to know to make sure that the investor can know that they're making a great investment into One Soccer Nation, and that they know that they could trust us, and they're making a great investment into the beautiful game, and why the timing is right, and why it's a once in a lifetime, because how often does the World Cup come around? We have to wait every 4 years, and who knows when the next one uh, is going to be in the US. So that's years to come.
No doubt. All right, Kareem, how about some words of advice for other people still fighting through it or trying to get a business up and running? What's some words of wisdom you'd share with them?
I think that business is hard. Starting a startup is not easy. From my experience, I mean, it's my first one, so I'd say uh, it's a lot of work. It's going to be hard, but I think that's why it's important to love it. And I'm going to quote Marcus Watterson, who owns Sarasota, a club in Sarasota in USL2. And I remember when I interviewed him, he said, I said, why'd you start a team in COVID? And he said, I wanted to get up and running. I just loved the game so much, and I wanted to build community. I fell in love with Sarasota. But he's like, there's always going to be ups and downs. As long as you love it, then you're going to go through it and you're going to make it. So I don't think it's word for word what he said, but it's around there. So again, I'd say the love, the passion, and the obsession.
Well, that
You
certainly
kind of
comes,
have those three things. Yeah.
yeah, that certainly comes through from you. And look, we're rooting for you. We'd love to see this work out for you. So, Kareem, thank you so much for taking the time today, and we wish you the best of luck to make this dream a reality.
Thank you, Matt.